The sky burned red over the Arizona borderlands, a violent glow swallowing the horizon. Smoke curled upward in thick, ghostly tendrils, blotting out the stars. This wasn't just a wildfire, thought Captain Elias Carter as he gripped the steering wheel of Engine 47. This was something else. The call had come in just after midnight, a fast-moving blaze tearing through the rugged desert near a known smuggling route. Wildfires weren't uncommon in this region, but something about this one felt different. The flames were spreading too quickly, moving in erratic, unnatural patterns. Reports from the sheriff's department hinted at armed men seen fleeing into the hills. Elias turned to his team, veteran firefighter Miguel Santos and rookie Daniel "Danny" Reese. "This isn't a routine fire. Keep your eyes open," he warned. As they neared the blaze, the dry desert heat pressed against the windshield like a living thing. The terrain was unforgiving, sharp ridges, deep ravines, and an eerie silence interrupted only by the roar of the approaching inferno. Then they saw it. Through the smoke and flickering embers, the outlines of figures moved in the distance, darting shadows against the fire's glow. Not firefighters, not wildlife, people. Miguel narrowed his eyes. Coyotes. He wasn't talking about animals. The term referred to human smugglers who trafficked desperate immigrants across the border. They operated in secrecy, and fire was the last thing they wanted drawing attention. Danny shifted uncomfortably. "Are they running from the fire or toward something?" Before anyone could answer, a deafening crack split the night. A burning tree collapsed onto the trail, forcing Elias to swerve violently. The truck skidded to a stop, throwing up a cloud of dust and ash. Miguel jumped out first, scanning the darkness. That's when he saw her. A young woman, barely more than a teenager, stumbled from the smoke, her face streaked with soot and terror. She clutched something tightly to her chest, a small, unmoving bundle. A baby. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Then, as if realizing she was no longer alone, she gasped, turned, and ran back toward the fire. Danny lunged forward. "Wait, you can't!" Too late. She vanished into the inferno. Elias cursed under his breath. The fire was closing in fast, and now they had a choice. Fight the flames or follow the girl into the heart of the blaze. And something told him they weren't alone. Nogales, Arizona, was no stranger to fire. The border town split between the U.S. and Mexico sat at the edge of the Sonoran Desert, a place where the sun scorched the earth by day and the cold bit deep at night. Fires here could burn for weeks, feeding on the bone-dry vegetation, racing through the canyons and arroyos like a living beast. The region was rugged and unforgiving. Towering saguaros stood like silent sentinels over the rocky terrain, and the rusting remains of old mining operations littered the hillsides. Nogales had long been a passageway, once for gold-seeking prospectors, now for those searching for something just as valuable: hope. Elias Carter had fought fires all across the Southwest, but he knew that battling flames in the desert came with its own set of nightmares. The heat could make the metal of their equipment scorching to the touch. Winds funneled through the canyons, turning flames into tornadoes of fire. And out here, amid the darkness and shifting sands, there were places even seasoned firefighters hesitated to go. But hesitation wasn't an option tonight. The girl had vanished into the fire, and with her, the baby. Elias turned to Miguel and Danny. "We go after her. Stay close, stay low, and watch your footing." The three firefighters pulled their Nomex hoods tighter over their faces, their self-contained breathing apparatuses, SCBAs, strapped in place. Their air tanks would last about 30 minutes in these conditions, less if they panicked. They moved forward, the fire's heat pressing against them like an invisible hand, pushing them back. Visibility dropped as smoke billowed through the canyon, the orange glow pulsing in all directions. Then they heard it, a scream, faint but unmistakable. Miguel gestured to the right, toward a narrow gap between two burning mesquite trees. Elias took point, sweeping his flashlight ahead. Shadows flickered and danced. The heat shimmered, making the landscape ripple like a mirage. Then movement. Danny nearly tripped as his boot caught on something, a backpack half buried in the dirt. It looked hastily dropped, its contents spilled out. A canteen, a child's stuffed bear, a Spanish-language Bible. Someone had been running, fast. Elias picked up the bear. Its fur was singed, the eyes melted. Miguel's voice cut through the haze. "Over here!" The girl was crouched against a rock formation, clutching the baby. Her eyes were wide with terror, not just from the fire. Elias kneeled beside her. "You're safe now. We'll get you out." But the girl shook her head violently, pointing past them, deeper into the smoke. Danny followed her gaze. The flames flickered, and for a brief moment, he saw it too. A figure, standing motionless in the fire, watching them. Then just as suddenly it was gone. The girl whispered one word. "El Diablo." The girl's whisper sent a chill through Elias, despite the unbearable heat around them. El Diablo, the devil. Danny swallowed hard, shifting his weight. He had grown up hearing stories about the supernatural, ghosts in abandoned mines, strange lights in the desert. But standing in the middle of a raging wildfire, it was hard to dismiss what he had just seen. Miguel, ever the pragmatist, placed a reassuring hand on the girl's shoulder. "We're not alone out here, but we don't have time for ghost stories. We need to move." Elias nodded. "The fire's spreading fast. Our air supply won't last long." He motioned toward the girl, speaking in Spanish. "Puedes caminar? Can you walk?" She hesitated, then nodded, clutching the baby to her chest. Danny looked over his shoulder, back toward where he had seen the figure. The fire flickered and swayed, twisting shadows into shapes that didn't make sense. No footprints, no movement, just heat and smoke. Miguel tapped his shoulder. "Don't get spooked, rookie. We've got bigger problems." And he was right. A sudden gust of wind tore through the canyon, whipping the flames into a frenzy. Sparks shot into the air like fireflies drifting on the updraft. Then came the worst sound a firefighter could hear in open terrain. A low, deep roar, like a jet engine igniting. The fire was crowning. Elias's stomach dropped. The flames had reached the tops of the trees and were now racing across the canopy. A crown fire could spread at over 10 miles per hour, trapping them in seconds. "Move! Now!" Elias barked, pulling the girl to her feet. They ran, dodging falling branches and burning debris. Their boots sank into the scorched earth, the heat making the metal buckles on their gear scalding to the touch. Every breath tasted like ash. Then came another sound. Gunfire. Danny turned his head sharply toward the ridge above them. Shadows moved against the fire's glow. Men, armed, watching. Miguel swore under his breath. "Coyotes! And they don't look happy." Elias's mind raced. They had just become more than firefighters. They were now witnesses. And if these men were desperate enough to start a fire to cover their tracks, they wouldn't hesitate to eliminate anyone who got too close. The girl stumbled. Danny caught her, tightening his grip. "We're not leaving you behind," he assured her. More gunshots. A bullet ricocheted off the rock beside them. They were being hunted. Elias made a split-second decision. "The old mining tunnels. They're just ahead. Move!" Miguel shot him a look. "You sure about that? Those tunnels are unstable." "We don't have a choice." With fire at their backs and armed men closing in, they sprinted toward the last place anyone wanted to go, into the darkness beneath the earth. The entrance to the abandoned mining tunnel loomed ahead, a jagged hole carved into the mountainside, blacker than the smoke-choked sky. Elias had seen it before, a relic from the copper rush of the early 1900s. Miners had carved miles of passages beneath these hills, but after a collapse decades ago, the tunnels were left to rot. Now it was their only hope. "Inside, now," Elias ordered. Miguel helped the girl through first, shielding her and the baby as embers rained down. Danny followed, eyes darting toward the ridgeline. The armed men were still there, silhouetted against the inferno, but they weren't shooting anymore. They were watching. Why? A crack echoed through the canyon. A dead mesquite tree, its base consumed by fire, gave way and collapsed. The trunk slammed into the rocky slope above them, triggering a landslide. Stones tumbled down, a rush of dust and debris filling the air. Elias barely made it inside before the entrance partially caved in. Darkness swallowed them whole. The only light came from the tunnel mouth, flickering red from the fire outside. The air was thick with the scent of sulfur and decay, damp but laced with dust. Miguel adjusted his headlamp, its beam cutting through the pitch black. The tunnel stretched deep into the mountain, cracked wooden supports and rusted rails disappearing into the unknown. The girl clung to the baby, trembling. She hadn't said a word since she whispered, "El Diablo." Elias crouched beside her. "You're safe now. What's your name?" A long pause, then, barely a whisper, "Isabella." Miguel took a slow breath. She knew these tunnels were here. She ran toward them. Why? Danny exhaled sharply. "Maybe to escape the fire." Miguel shook his head. Number she was running before that, running from something else. Elias turned back toward the entrance. The fire outside roared like a living thing. But the men with guns, they hadn't followed. That's when Isabella finally spoke. "They won't come in." Danny frowned. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard. "The Coyotes. They won't come in because they're afraid." A long silence filled the tunnel. Miguel's hand drifted to his radio, but there was nothing, just static. Elias flicked his flashlight down the passage. The beam illuminated something carved into the rock wall, a symbol, worn and weathered, but unmistakable, a circle with an eye in the center. Isabella's breath hitched. She had seen it before. Danny did too, and suddenly he wished they had taken their chances with the fire. Something was down here, and it was waiting. The symbol on the wall sent a shiver through Elias's spine, a circle with an eye in the center. It was crude, scratched deep into the stone, its edges worn by time. Not a miner's mark, not graffiti, something older. Miguel ran his gloved fingers over it, frowning. "I've seen this before." Danny shot him a look. "Where?" Miguel hesitated. "Stories, border legends." He turned to Isabella. "This is why they won't come in, isn't it?" She nodded slowly, pressing the baby closer to her chest. Elias exhaled. "Enough with the ghost stories. We need to focus on getting out of here." Miguel didn't argue, but as they pushed deeper into the tunnel, the air changed. It grew colder, staler, heavy with something Elias couldn't name. And then they saw them. More symbols, scattered along the tunnel walls. Some newer, some ancient, all variations of the same eye. Watching, Danny's breath quickened. Why would miners carve these? Miguel adjusted his headlamp. They didn't. Elias felt the unease creeping into his gut. The deeper they went, the stronger it became. Isabella suddenly stopped. "We shouldn't be here." Her voice was barely a whisper. Before Elias could respond, a sound cut through the silence. A clicking sound, soft, rhythmic, coming from the darkness ahead. Danny's flashlight flicked toward the source, but the beam barely pierced the gloom. The clicking continued. Not mechanical, not human. Something moved. A shadow detached itself from the tunnel wall. A shape, tall, gaunt, watching. Danny stumbled back, his heart slamming against his ribs. "Captain?" The figure vanished. One blink, and it was gone. The static in Elias's radio crackled suddenly, spiking with a burst of garbled noise. Not voices, Not normal interference. A whisper. Miguel grabbed Elias's arm. "We need to go. Now." No argument. They ran. The tunnels twisted and turned, the walls closing in. Their breathing was loud in their masks, footsteps crunching on old gravel and rusted tracks. Behind them, the clicking followed. Faster now, closer. Danny glanced back and froze. A shape moved in the dark, shifting unnaturally, as if the shadows themselves were alive. Then the tunnel shook, a deep groaning sound, like the earth itself was waking up. Dust rained from the ceiling. Miguel grabbed Isabella, shielding her. Elias yanked Danny forward. Then the floor collapsed. Danny had just enough time to scream before the ground gave way beneath them, plunging them into the abyss. The fall was a blur. Dust and debris choked the air as Elias hit the ground hard, his gear absorbing most of the impact. Pain shot up his side, but he forced himself up. "Danny! Miguel!" His voice echoed in the dark, a cough to his left. Danny groaned, struggling to sit up. "I'm here," he wheezed. "Where's Miguel?" Elias swung his flashlight around. The beam cut through the dust, revealing Miguel half buried under collapsed beams. "Miguel!" Danny scrambled over, helping Elias pull debris off him. Miguel's breathing was ragged, but he was alive. Isabella coughed weakly. She and the baby were safe, just shaken. But they weren't alone. The clicking returned, louder, closer. Elias turned his light toward the far end of the cavern. The thing was there, a shape too tall, too thin, too wrong. Its skin was ashen, stretched tight over bones that didn't seem human. The eye symbol was carved into its chest. It didn't walk. It slid. Danny's breath hitched. "What the hell is that?" Isabella clutched the baby tighter. "El Diablo." The fire above had sent flickering light down through cracks in the tunnel ceiling, but here in the pit, the shadows seemed to shift on their own, writhing, reaching. Miguel groaned. "We need to move." Elias snapped back to reality. They had to get out. His flashlight scanned the cavern, old tracks, a rusted cart, and there, a tunnel leading up. The creature moved, fast. The clicking became a rasping sound, a whisper of something ancient. Elias didn't wait. He yanked Miguel up, threw Isabella onto his back and shouted, "Run!" Danny grabbed a rusted pickaxe from the debris and swung it wildly as he backed toward the exit. The thing stopped, watching. For the first time, Elias saw its face. No eyes, just empty sockets, but it was still watching. Then the fire above roared, and the cavern walls cracked. Danny dropped the pickaxe and bolted. The fire had weakened the rock, and now the entire place was about to come down. They sprinted for the tunnel, barely keeping ahead of the collapsing stone. The thing didn't chase them. It didn't have to. It just watched. Like it had seen them before, like it would see them again. They burst into the open air, gasping. The fire had moved past, leaving charred remains of the canyon. Sirens wailed in the distance. Elias turned back toward the tunnel, but it was gone, collapsed, buried. Danny fell to his knees, panting. "Tell me that was just smoke messing with our heads." Miguel didn't answer. Elias looked at Isabella. She knew. She met his gaze and whispered, "It lets some people go." Some! The wind howled through the burned remains of the trees. In the distance, beyond the flickering embers, the shadows moved, watching, waiting. Thanks for watching Brave Sparks. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more powerful and inspiring stories. Stay brave, and we'll see you in the next one.